Hi folks, it's Andy. I hope you're having a fantastic day. A quick impromptu video that I'm recording for you today. It's a bit, I know it all looks a little bit different to normal because I'm actually recording this by Zoom instead of the normal software because it just allows me to do what I need to do for this video a little bit easier. So I hope it's all okay. I hope you can hear me loud and clear and see me okay. Basically, I'm making this video because somebody sent me a question that I thought was a fantastic question and was definitely something that I think a lot of people struggle with in terms of understanding, something myself as well. I didn't quite understand properly until quite late in my Kendo career, and it kind of veered me off path in quite a lot of ways. So I do think it's worth exploring and talking about. So the first thing I want to do is read the question out yeah, so we can sort of see what exactly it is that we're talking about. So the question goes something like this. It says, good evening, Fisher Sense. I hope you and your family are safe. Well, yeah, okay. So I have a question that might be good for a next Kendo rant, and it may be a little sensitive. So this was originally intended for the Kendo rant video series that I do, but I decided to do it in a separate video because I think it is such a great topic on its own. I've been watching a lot of competition on YouTube from Japan, dating back from 10 years ago up until 2 years ago, focusing on Japan versus Korea. I have been hammered around footwork and correct shinai control to achieve correct ippon. Yet when I watch the highest caliber practitioners in our field, it's quite the opposite. The footwork is nothing like what I've been taught. The stance is extremely wide and long. The shinai control, if nothing, is erratic. My question is, and I understand that we must learn basic, authentic Kendo, but why is it so different in competition? Dojo Kendo does not replicate competition. As a new practitioner studying both, I've been taught to have my left toe in line with my right heel, traditional stance, but I've seen much elongated stances in competition, much wider. It confuses me because I am told to keep a short distance, which is actually unbalanced. So in the ethos of Kendo being balanced and to strike in line with mind, body, and sword, you're actually off balance based on what I'm seeing in competitions. So my question is, what's the difference between Dojo Kendo and competition Kendo with regard to traditional practices, and how is ippon actually decided? So that's a great kind of question and a great thing that I think a lot of people, like I say, struggle with. You get taught in the dojo, this is the correct kamae, your feet should be all sort of this distance apart, you shouldn't move your shinai away from the center, and stuff like that. And then if you watch high level competition, it does look quite different. And yet, it kind of does, but it's quite difficult to explain, which is why I've tried to make this video. Basically, in here, what I wrote back with is it's kind of, in a way, a case of knowing the rules so you know which ones you can kind of bend and break effectively. It's not really that either, though, because if you watch the highest level caliber of competition, they're not doing it wrong. It's just that what you're practicing in your dojo keiko is to do the best to get your body to remember the most effective methods automatically. But of course, in a situation where you're under pressure and you have to make ippon, then some of those things have to experience compromise in order for the shiai to proceed and for you to be able to act and respond and attack dynamically in every situation. But with that being said, it's not really the case that what you're being taught in the dojo is like off balance or something like that. So we'll have a look in a minute at a video of high level competition. I'll try and explain it a little bit better. But the fact of the matter is, when your feet are in the correct position with your left toe pretty much level with your right heel, you shouldn't be off balanced if your weight distribution is correct. and your footwork is correct, and you've kind of got to grips with ashisabaki and suriashi. Most people don't get to grips with this for the first 10 or 15 years of Kendo. And I think people struggle with it even up to sort of third or fourth dan. In fact, I've seen people above that struggle with it. And it's about effectively using your lower body, and you're extremely stable in that position. So it's not the case that you're unstable, and that's why they use the wider stance in competition to get more stability. The reason the stance widens is for a different reason. So yeah, and the other thing as well, of course, is that there's an element of I hesitate to say sort of style, but once you reach a certain level of competency, you sort of start to develop your own style of Kendo in a way, and that's why everybody's Kendo looks different, and it all follows the same sort of rules and guidelines. And it's not because they are the rules and guidelines, it's because they are the most effective ways to achieve Yuko Datotsu valid strikes, and strikes that sort of do unify the sword, body, and spirit together. But of course, everybody has a slightly different way of achieving that once they've built up a certain foundation, and that's why you'll see those sort of variances. So it's a bit like any other sport. I think if you watch the top level players, there'll be some variance from the kihon, the sort of standard basics, but it's usually at selective opportunities and at times when they know when you can bend the rules in order to achieve what you want to achieve. So let's have a look at a video, and we'll talk about it in a little bit more depth. Okay, so this video is this is a great video from SW Kendo, one of my favorite YouTube channels. You should definitely subscribe to that channel. It's fantastic. And this is Kunitomo Rentaro, the current All Japan champion. And these are some of his ippons from 2014 to 2019. So I think he's a great example of what we're talking about. And he's on the right here, okay? So fantastic men strike. And you can see, yes, we've got a slow motion here. So here we go. Here's a good example of the very wide stance, right? Okay, so yes, this is somewhat different to what you're taught at the dojo. And that's because he started to use concepts like seme, which is to put pressure on your opponent to develop an opportunity to strike. Now, let's talk about the stability, all right? Let's see if I can draw on this. So, as you can see, he stepped forward with his right foot. But what I think you'll find is it's not that if he was doing this for stability, his sort of weight would be sort of distributed something like this, right? Yeah, these two arrows, it'd be sort of even, and he'd be sort of putting sort of more weight onto his front foot as with his back foot. Now, it's not that he's got no weight on his front foot, because he has, but essentially the way to think about this is his weight and his sort of power is not distributed this way. It's instead, let's get rid of all that, and it's concentrated this way, okay? Excuse me, from his lower body, all right? It's concentrated this way, all right? So it's not like that. And from his hips is like this way, okay? This is the direction that he's traveling in, okay? So this is this is kind of the next step up from what you've probably been taught in the dojo, because he's already started his attack at this point. He's no longer in kamae, he's already on his way to attack, even though he hasn't actually made the physical movements so much other than pushing forward with his right foot. And you can see his opponents reacted to that as well, right? And his opponent's taken a very wide stance too. But the wide stance of his opponent is somewhat different. If we just go back a little bit, on this if I'm able to. The wide stance on his opponent is indeed a little bit different. See if we can get to it. Oh, it's already cut past it. But you can see. See, as there's a difference there, okay? So as Mr. Kunitomo steps forward with his right foot, let's have a look at that weight distribution again. You can see it quite clearly. Sorry, I'm skipping forward and backwards here. I can catch that right bit, okay? It's difficult to see so much from the video, but as I said, Mr. Kunitomo's sort of weight distribution is sort of going this way, okay? Sort of going this way, and this pressure from him is totally going towards him there, his intention. And in response to that, that's affected him because his body weight has gone like this, yeah? And his intention, in a way, has kind of gone like that, right? And because of that, that's how he loses this point, because he's not able to respond. All right, because he's broken the rules in the wrong way. Yeah. If he hadn't done this, if he had kept his feet close together, then he might have been able to react differently. But because he kind of got set up this way, it ended up sort of playing out as it did. As you see, so his only option once he realizes it's too late is to try and escape, but it's just not there. Okay. And in terms of, you talked as well about shinai control, and I think what you might have meant about that is kind of holding the shinai in chudan on, towards the opponent, I guess. But Mr. Kunitomo has fantastic shinai control. There's no doubt about it. Even if he does move it away from the center, it's done so with intention. So although his hands again are moving, as we can see here, his hands have moved like this. You can actually see that the intention of his strike is still the same, isn't it? Yeah. So he's coming forward this way like a freight train. And this here is kind of I wouldn't say a distraction, but it's kind of part of his semi. And this guy here has ended up kind of like this, like what's going on. Yeah. So that's why that's happened. It's kind of an extension of a semi. So without sort of going too much further, because I think I've got the point across now, because I don't want to muddy the waters too much. I mean, the basic emphasis on this is if you are sort of looking at high-level practitioners or Japan champions, stuff like that, and you're sort of looking at it and going, well, they're breaking all the rules, or that's like the wrong kendo or something like that, you're probably misunderstanding what's going on. Because for the most part, these top elite level players. Now, granted, I know you mentioned sort of Japan versus Korea, and that's obviously from the World Championships. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at the All Japan Championships, because frankly, it's a higher level than the World Championships. And it's better to look at those players now. And if you look at the Japanese team, they have to act a little bit different. The World Championships is a little bit of a different environment. There's a lot more variables than it's a whole new video that I don't particularly want to get into. But still, for the same sort of point, if you're sort of looking at these top level players and thinking, yeah, well, they're doing it wrong, it might not be that they're doing it wrong, but rather that you're sort of interpreting what's happening a little bit wrong. So yeah, it's a case of knowing the rules to a point in which you know where to interpret them and to where you're able to sort of bend them. And none of this interferes with the concept of Kikentai no Ichi, unifying the sword, body, and spirit. And none of it interferes with the concept of Yuko Datotsu making a valid strike, because the strikes the strike we just watched, and I'll put it on again. is the obviously fantastic ippon. Okay, this is clear ippon. Opponent's clearly beaten. And again, if we watch again, now here's another point. I'm going to stop soon because I'm going on quite a lot, but yeah, yes, he raises hands to defend and stuff like that, but you're allowed to defend in Kendo. You're allowed to defend. It's not always a tactically good option, but there's nothing in Kendo that says you can't defend yourself. It's perfectly valid, especially in Shiai. But if you look at his command here, it's pretty much textbook. His right foot's creeping forward as he starts to apply semi and pressure, but he's ready to launch forward with that strike. It's not about stability. Okay, so bam. Kaishido, perfect Kaishido ippon, right? Essentially, you know, this kind of ippon reel, it's look at that, amazing. Okay, so you know, it's a little bit wider, but again, I think this is part of a stylistic thing. As he starts to apply pressure, it starts to get wider and wider as his right foot comes out forward for semi, but he does bring the left foot up, remember, because he needs that stability without getting too far and the ability to launch himself forward. As I said, remember those arrows that I drew, he needs to keep his weight going in that direction. And then he's able to perform a fantastic debanamen. That's perfect ippon. There's no gray area there, okay? His opponent had the opposite problem. You can see here from here, you see where his weight's going? It's like, it's not, although I'll draw one more picture on here, okay? And then, although his weight's sort of going this way, his intention and his kind of body weight is going that way, okay? Whereas Mr. Kunitomo's is going that way, but that way, okay? And then his shinai is going to go here, bam. Okay, so I think that's long enough about it. I think I've made the point. I hope it makes sense. If it doesn't, then do let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if it makes sense. Let me know if you don't agree. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Don't forget, if you like the videos that I make, support me by shopping at KendoStar.com. That's my website. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.